Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Elliot Grigg. This is a reaction review show regarding Ohara Davies's first round stoppage defeat against Ismael Barroso last night in Las Vegas. Elliot, there's not much to analyze from the fight. I think it lasted about 90 seconds. Not the result we were expecting. Ohara Davies did go in there as the favourite against Barroso last night. What did you think of the fight? As long as it lasted, and yeah, your reaction to everything that happened.
Well, you know what I did expect to happen. Paul and I were on the preview show. I did actually pick Barroso, even though Paul himself did look at me as though I'd fallen from space. But I didn't expect it to happen as it did happen. I thought it was actually going to be Barroso on points and that he would drop Davis. But I think I referred to Davis as resilient, which then obviously didn't come around last night when he got stopped as quickly as he did get stopped. Wasn't necessarily surprised at the overall result, just because I feel like Ohara Davis, despite having some good wins on his record, is quite limited in his sort of style, if that makes sense. Despite the fact that I'm actually a fan of his, I quite like his sort of personality and the way he kind of conducts himself. It's quite amusing on occasions. But yeah, I feel like there was a ceiling which he'd been kind of operating at, even though some of the names he was on that record as well that he kind of lost to or that he'd beaten also weren't necessarily as good as they considered to be, like Tyron McKenna being one of those. So for me, it wasn't too much of a surprise looking at both records, but the way it happened was a surprise. And to be honest with you, I feel like and we'll pick this up no doubt here as well. But where we go from here with Ohara Davis is going to be more interesting. But I feel like it won't be to the level that he was at last night. I don't think we'll see him in a fight like that against someone like Barroso again. It's just a case of where we match him now, I suppose.
Yeah, I think he's had one of those careers where I would call it a themed career, where he has beaten names. He's beaten Tyron McKenna, as you mentioned, Lewis Ritz in his last fight, another name that you mentioned, Derry Matthews from quite a few years ago. He's beaten like decent British level
Mm.
fighters. However, like it's just plain to see now kind of his losses kind of quite stand out. Josh Taylor went on to be undisputed champion. Jack Catterall should have gone on to be undisputed champion. Ismael Barroso, former world title challenger. Well, might you can debate whether he's world level now, but he's if you look what he's done last night, look what he's done against in the Romero fight. He can still be considered as world level despite his age. And I just think Davis has had one of those careers where he's just kind of fallen in a certain way at each of those hurdles. Obviously, Josh Taylor, who was a stoppage in the mid rounds. Jack Catterall was actually quite a close point fight on points. However, yeah, it's been a kind of brutal first round knockout as we saw last night, which I don't think I'll be interested to have seen the odds on a first round stoppage for Barroso. They've been quite wide. Um, we're going to focus on here, Elliot, is where Ohara Davies goes next. Um, it's a tricky one. He's about to turn 32. Um, Obviously, as we mentioned, this is third defeat. There's a possibility that he could go up. He's been at 140 for a long time now. There are big domestic fights at 140. I'll hand it over to you now. What do you think we'll see him do next?
It's a tough one. I think for me, Ohara Davis, I think I'm going to position him and contextualize him in this way. I think he's actually a decent name that someone up and coming could have on that record, to be honest with you. I think he's ripe to be beaten by someone up and coming. I mean, if you look even at British level, I'm not necessarily saying might happen next, but someone like those names like Adam Azim, Dalton Smith, I think he's actually there potentially for one of those to beat Dahara Davis, frankly. And if he stays at super light, you look down at, I mean, I know he was ranked, what was it last night, the WBA? WBA wasn't, he was ranked high up there. Someone like Adam Azim's 10th on their rankings. So again, if you get someone like Ohara Davis and you beat him, that's a marquee victory as far as I can see. So I actually wouldn't consider that bad matchmaking, even though look, let's be honest, Ohara Davies hits hard, and that's a very, very risky fight. But I just feel like stylistically, he doesn't necessarily have the boxing ability of someone like Azim, even someone like that, someone like Smith. I wouldn't necessarily be against either of those happening. To be honest, that's where I actually see Ohara Davies going. I see him potentially having a kind of fight against someone British rather than contesting, some of those other names that are in around world level. I just don't necessarily see him being the sort of draw for those guys, if that makes sense either. I can't see him fighting some of the names in and around the division. I mean, Ryan Garcia is what ranked in that ranking. I don't see Ryan Garcia fighting Ohara Davis at any point. I don't see obviously any of the champions fighting him at any point. So yeah, for me, I actually would see him more a case of someone throwing Ohara Davies maybe to not to the Wolves as such, but into a sort of fight which, if he doesn't lose, if he loses, sorry, will springboard the upper opponent more into that kind of ranking in those sort of top five, and in the rankings of super lightweight division.
Yeah, that kind of gatekeeper role. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just think that it's it's going to be interesting to see what he does next. It's I just think it's going to be a hard sell for him to kind of come back and say, I want to kind of get back in the world title mix. I think when you've gone into a fight as a favorite and you've been decimated like that, it's hard to. And he's about to turn 32. If he was 5 years younger, I'd maybe feel differently. But I just think a good route for him is to try and aim to be in those big domestic fights. And it's not as if those domestic fights don't exist. He's in a good division. Harlem Eubank is another name as well. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. Um, but yeah, I think I would be lying if I thought that kind of there were many kind of positives to put on here. And I think one issue that one question I've got for you, Elliot, is if you're Adam Azim's team, Dalton Smith's team, would you even look at Ohara Davis and say we can't kind of better Ismael Barroso's performance there? And we just kind of want to aim for higher than Davis. We want to face people who have got better resumes than Davis. Do you think that's a that's a possibility?
No, I think to be honest with you, I think Ohara Davis. You look at both of those guys' records. I think coming off against fighting guys like Maxwell, I still think if you get like Ohara Davis on that record, that's a live name. Ohara Davis's record's actually respectable if you look at it from a kind of like 25-2 or 3, whatever record he's kind of got. You look at that and go, actually, that's live. And like you said, the age, all right, he's not young for that for someone at that weight. I think for me, my concern actually would be for someone like Adam Azim would be, is it one too soon? Is it a bit of a gamble? But then you look at other guys that have taken fights where you think they're like Nick Ball, the run that he had, where he sort of had that step up, and all of a sudden you go, bloody hell, you're like, fighting for sort of like super belts and all that sort of stuff, silver, sorry, belts and that stuff like that. Now you go, that's actually maybe a trajectory that you could get by beating someone like O'Hara Davis. So for me, I actually think it makes sense. I mean, Dalton Smith obviously older. Was Dalton Smith 26, I think, isn't he? So in a way, like it makes sense for him to have a go at O'Hara Davis. But for me, I think Adams is actually stylistically perfect for someone like O'Hara Davis. To essentially just outbox him, it would be a fantastic win for him, and I think it'd be the springboard that he frankly needs. I wouldn't, to be honest, I know obviously they've fought before, but I wouldn't even see it as a bad fight for someone like Jack Catterall, even though not now because he's already fought him. But if they hadn't fought before, I'd go, you know what, take someone like O'Hara Davis in a low risk fight and prevail in that. But yeah, that's where I see it. I mean, I'm going to put a name at you actually that I think could be quite wild. Imagine if he did go up and he fought someone like Conor Benn as well. There's obviously been a bit of to and fro, isn't there, between those guys on Twitter as well, previously formerly known as Twitter, obviously now X. Something like that could also be quite interesting. But I think, and if that happened, that'd be a shootout that I would actually be very interested in watching.
Yeah. Uh, do I think that fight's going to happen? No, because I think that Conor Benn's response to that would be, no, I want to fight. I want to be on the world scene soon. I think another time, and if certain careers have gone in a different route, that fight could be a possibility, and that would be a good fight as well. And you never know. You never know. I think you can't rule out completely. But no, in terms of what would happen, that'd be interesting. And that's another possibility as well. Ohara Davies has been at 140 a long time. Could move up to 147. Um, but we'll see. Look, if I'm being honest, I feel a bit bad having this conversation just because it's kind of less than 24 hours after someone has been stopped in the fashion he has. So we will see. We'll leave it there, Elliot. Thank you very much for your time. We'll see what is next in the career for Ohara Davies in the coming weeks and months. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.